Hey guys, Ebereg here. I just wanted to give you a heads up. A lot of scenarios got updated between Command Modern Air Naval Operations and Command Modern Operations, so I wanted to show you what needs to do differently between my original guides and now. For Advanced ASW Exercise, you're going to need to set your own reference points for the ASW aircraft to patrol. Also, the SSG in Op4 is going to attack you no matter what. Luckily, your air defenses are just good enough to block the attack. For Brother Against Brother, you're going to need to rescue survivors from Cartagena de Indias with Naval search and rescue helicopters when it goes down. This is fairly straightforward though. There's going to be a lot more rebels to take out when you do get cleared hot. Luckily, you have attack helicopters, so your best option is to place them right over the Valkyries and enjoy the destruction. Oh yeah, the OBE-10 Broncos are useful for bombing emplacements. For choking Halifax, not much to say except the target is the right one this time around. You're also going to need to haul ass towards the safe zone once you're done laying mines in order to get there in time. Doesn't mean you can't take out targets of opportunity though. For the first contact scenarios, basics are the same, you just have to take out all enemy ships in order to win, but as of this recording, the script that gives you a message telling you that you won is broken. Also of note is that in the second scenario, you will get your FTVs into a gunfight with enemy missile boats, which will end about as well as you can expect. Luckily, this will cause said missile boats to run out of missiles so you can take them out with some of the heavier guns you have available. I actually made a bit of a mistake in the fourth first contact scenario by turning on my helicopter's radars too early. You can't track the Russian corvettes with active radar, but the LF will do its job well enough. I also had to do a database update, but with that I managed to finish the scenario. Boy, smugglers are seriously just 4.5 minutes. Anyways, when firing on the Russian missile boats, do make sure your NSMs don't accidentally lock onto a harmless fishing vessel. For Operation Lion's Den, you're going to have to use your Corsairs to scout out enemy artillery, and it's best to do so at minimum altitude. Your safest bet when taking out enemy artillery is to use the viewpoint and use it at long range, but you can't really use it for everything since it has this supply of 8-inch ammunition. Use your better judgment to decide which to engage with the viewpoint use and which to engage with your fire ships, but do make sure to run away at flank speed if you ever do get fired on. Don't worry about taking the occasional hit though, it's not going to do much. Your Corsairs will run out of fuel near the end, so when they RTB, make sure that they get out from under SAM coverage at low altitude so they don't get shot at. For Operation Market Time, you can't rely on preset patrol missions as much, so it's best to send radar-equipped ships in the south between the last known positions and the resupply points they're headed to. It's best to use the OB-10 Broncos to attack the enemy boats in the center, while the P-2 Neptune can be used to take out the boat with AA guns. Helicopters can be used to take out other targets. For Standing Naval Force Atlantic, you're going to have to deal with submarines, so I would recommend sending all available ASW armed MPAs to guard the amphibious task force. especially since standard 4 land is capable of handling itself. However, if a submarine spots it, you will have to fend off from incoming anti-shipping missiles, but its air defenses aren't good enough to handle it. You might also have to use bullpups to take out the Soviet Surface Action Group, especially since at the time of recording there's a bug in the script that randomizes their location, making sure that only the foil or the associated location can be changed. If you do have to use bullpups, please remember that they are command guided, so you can only fire one at a time. For the Tiger and the Dragon, there's not much to say except that neither side has any fighters in the air at the start, so action is less instant and you can take less losses as the game ends. For the updated version of Canary's Cage, I would suggest arming only one Hornet on Torch on with arms and arming 4 with penetrating paveways, with a reserve Hornet with penetrating paveways that Barone has above 30 enough to malfunctions. You're also going to have to tell your SM2s to only fire at 60 nautical miles in order to preserve them and increase your chances of a hit. I would not recommend using your submarine to try to take out the Naval amphibious landing force. Instead, use them to clear the area ahead of group out of enemy submarines, for whatever it's worth. I would also strongly advise that you not hold on to the Buffy captain and instead launch an immediate with the Buffy staying on station at 2,000 feet above sea level and attacking at 1,000 feet above sea level in order to increase reaction time against incoming anti-shipping missiles. However, you will run out of sidewinders doing this, so when you start getting alerts of the Buffy's being hard to preserve, stop the Buffy Cat and instead arm them with Mavericks to take out any radar sites messes and batteries. Another thing to note is that 2 harpoons are enough against any male PCFGs that are attacking you. Don't use 4 like I did in the original scenario. Before striking any airfields, you should take regular incursions into Naval airspace over said airfields in order to attract their cap, intercepts, and high crew assets. As soon as you feel like you've betrayed the fighters over Moroccan airspace enough, launch all harpoon-carrying Hornets at Barone in groups of 4 to take out the Naval amphibious landing force. Try to sink as many ships as possible by targeting the ones with friendlies directly behind them. If you've done it right, there should be only 4 vessels left with the second harpoon striking a piece of cake. When the Sirocco and the Tramontana are done with their landings on enemy ships, you can use them to drop off one dual team on each island, but they're not going to be able to take out any SSN batteries or provide much reconnaissance this time around. The airport strikes are rather similar this time around, with the main difference being that harms should be used to take out radars and not SAM sites, especially since the strike will take place at night, so you don't have to worry about being detected with the SAMs keeping their radars off. When the Hornets from the second harpoon strike get back, onto with harms or with penetrating paveways into his fighters. Now I would show you how to do the strike on the Canary Island airports, but I kinda just gave up on this scenario due to constant losses from submarines. I wouldn't recommend anyone play it. For Duelists, you're going to come under a lot more heat from the Soviets, especially since they kinda cheat. I would recommend putting your ASW choppers further forward until a backfire raid comes, and trust me, it will come. As a precautionary measure, you should set the Invincibles group doctrines to don't ignore MCON when under attack. When recon planes do start buzzing you, remember that your Nimrods do carry sidefinders. Use them. However, you are not going to stop the backfires from coming and launching supersonic shipping missiles. Try to keep the Invincible group's radars off, and only turn on the radars of individual ships when your short anti-shipping missile is heading its way in order to at least shoot some down. Let's be frank, that's not going to stop losses though. Also of note is that you're going to run low on sidewinders in this full CDHG, and when you do, you should switch your Harriers over to the ferry loadout so they can use their internal guns. Don't attack helicopters, and don't expect to get ace in a day. For Operation Brass Drum, you're going to have to change the loadouts of some of your E-model Super Hornets at the start. 4 with penetrating JM's short-range loadout, and 4 with JSO Broach short-range loadout. Also, don't load AMRAMs on these guys and take them off your other strikers whenever you get the chance. You only have a limited amount of those. Gotta be honest though, you don't need an intermediate fuel supply mission for your NPAs in Diego Garcia, and you don't need to worry about Russian interference. At the start of this scenario, you should launch an EA-18 Growler, and as soon as it gets in the air, Launch all of your C model Hornets in groups of 4 to take out the first SA-10. With the ones carrying A model JSOs, you're going to have to tell them to ignore target ambiguity. Now I got lucky and managed to take out the SA-10 with the JSOs I threw at it, but if you're not lucky, you can just use Tomahawks to finish it off. While you can bomb the runways at Charbahar, Jask, and Bandar Lenga with the long-range penetrator loadouts, the same is not true of Bandar Abash. You're still going to need 4 penetrators per runway. Also, you can't just run the Iranian Tomcats out of ammunition this time around. You're going to have to take them out. SM-6s are great for this, but in lieu of those, you can take advantage of the Tomcats' piss-poor IFF capabilities. When your C-model Hornets land, immediately switch 6 to short-range AARGM loadouts and 2 to carry AARGMs and JSO A models so they can be used to take out the Sam's Round Bandar Abbas. Another thing to note is that you don't have a lot of time, so no dicking around with ITALs. You're just going to have to tell your Tomahawks aimed at the lone SA-6 to overfly Jask and immediately tell them to attack the SA-11 protecting Jask when it reveals itself. That is, if your Trident radar hasn't spotted it already. Now you have a limited level of fighter coverage, which means you're going to have to rely on your SM-6s from time to time to stop attacks. Turning on a limited search art of the Farragut's radar can help you engage the attackers. Of particular note is that you should only use SM-6s against aircraft and lead the incoming missiles to your ESSM, so set your weapon release authorization accordingly. You're still going to run out of SM-6s eventually though, but luckily the ESSMs are still great SAMs at a bit short range. It's imperative that you take out any Iranian missile boats and patrol craft before the Zumwalt SAG gets into range. I would suggest using slammers to take out the ones on the near side of the minefield and use JSO approaches to take out any survivors, as well as the Iranian boats on the far side of the minefield. I would also suggest approaching the latter from the sea, though, to make sure your JSO approaches don't smash into the ground and when your Hornets and Slammers land, arm them with A-model JSOs. Also, as noted before, you don't have a lot of time, so I would suggest taking out the SA-10 around Bandar Lenga with Tomahawks and 20 should do the trick. Once you get it close enough to the minefield, Iran is going to send a swarm of patrol craft after you. Use the Farragut's 5-inch deck gun to take them out while always aiming for the closest one, and if any get too close, you can use the LCS's Hellfires. While your remaining JSO approaches can be used to take out targets of opportunity, the Zumwalt's deck gun is great for taking out targets around the Straits of Hormuz. Even short-range SSM batteries, since it outranges them. Just remember to use it like a missile launcher and not a gun, and only allocate just enough ordnance since its rounds are very accurate, but also very expensive. It's not strictly necessary, but when you set up the mine clearing missions, you can use the KC-130s at Djibouti to keep your helicopters in the air, especially since you can overfly the Arabian Peninsula this time around. If you're feeling uncomfortable using the Zumwalt's deck guns to take out everything, you can use JSO A models to clear out things like SSM batteries, disabled SAMs, and even stray AA guns. Lastly, you're going to have to haul ass when you get out of the minefield in order to make it to Point Whiskey in time, especially since, at the time of recording, the event that gives you a victory doesn't work or even exist. The Shamal scenario is a lot shorter this time around from both the Navy and Air Force perspectives, since only targets marked as targets give you points except the runways at H2. Fighters are a much more regular occurrence as well, but you're the fucking US Air Force. You don't give a shit. If you're having trouble identifying ground targets as the Air Force, just remember that your J-Stars can do so if they get closer. Now the Iraqis are actually smart enough to not blast their radars all the time this time around. Luckily, you can bearing only launch alarms at them in order to bait their shots. You can't do this for SA-6s, however, so make sure to get an EF-111 Raven to fly within range to bait their shots, especially since you can just turn on their jammers to cause the missiles to lose track. You're going to have to buzz the disabled SA-2 protecting H2 so they can't identify you though. On the Navy side of things, you're going to have to spend 6 in-game hours reloading your aircraft again, but this time you should load 10 intruders with Mark 84 paveways, 4 intruders with Blue 109 paveways, and 2 intruders with walleyes. Also, make sure to arm 6 Corsairs with light harm loadouts and 2 Corsairs with walleyes. Don't worry about the Hornets, they're not much use. Since you're going to spend so much time loading up, the Iraqis are going to hit you with a massive fighter sortie when you start your attack, but you're the fucking US Navy. You don't give a shit. Except when your Tomcats run out of fuel living without any fire coverage, and you do give a shit. In lieu of alarms, you can use walleyes to bait the SA-2s and SA-3s over the chemical plant, but since the SA-2 over H2 has shit radar coverage, you can just land with full walleyes. Your EA-6 Prowlers can bait shots from enemy SA-6s like the Air Force EF-111 Ravens, so make sure they fly low over H3 in order to get identified so they can bait shots. Don't try to take out the defenses over H2 though, it's just not worth it. Lastly, Green Tide, North Pacific Shootout, Operation Vantage, Pyrpolitis 114, and Stand Up have been changed so much that I'm going to have to do a new guide on them. So stay tuned, fellow commanders, for those walkthroughs. This is Ebereg, signing off.